Hello, everybody, and happy Wednesday or happy hump day. How are you doing today? I hope everybody is doing all right. I am Charles Taylor, and I am your host for this latest Breath of Fresh Air Shorty. So, for today, we're going to talk about the college football playoff rankings. I really hadn't talked too much about college football as the season has gone along, so I need to get in here and talk about it a little bit. We had the rankings come out Tuesday, and the top four are LSU, Ohio State, Clemson, and Georgia took the fourth spot over Alabama. So more on that in a minute. But looking at how these rankings broke down, uh, it was it was pretty much expected how things were going to come out. A lot of us knew LSU was going to be the number one team now, and personally, I thought they should have been number one on the first rankings anyway, but that's another story. LSU going into Alabama and winning that game by a score of 46-41, where if you did watch the game, LSU kind of controlled that game from the start. Alabama definitely made it interesting. You knew they weren't going to go quietly, especially in front of their home crowd in Tuscaloosa. But LSU was in control, especially in that second, third quarter where they were up 20. Alabama made their run, and then LSU and the quarterback Joe Burrow made the plays they had to make to pull that game out. By the way, Joe Burrow is the clear front runner for the Heisman Trophy. So there's some other people who could possibly win it depending on how things go on. But if LSU continues to win, then Joe Burrow will be your Heisman winner. So now, just looking at the rankings and how they broke down, you have Alabama sitting at number five. So what this says, before I get to that, to me, rankings are they're I think they're made to be a big deal just based on conversation pieces, more or less. It definitely makes for good debates, and people definitely have their says on where teams should be or where they feel they got screwed, just depending on what fan base you're for. But the things with rankings is, I mean, of course, you're put where you're put depending on whoever's doing the poll, whether it's the Associated Press, whether it's the coaches poll, and then later on in the year, it's the college football playoff rankings that take precedence over anything else. But a lot of times, these things will work themselves out. There's a lot of football left to be played, so for a team like Alabama, who's sitting on the outside looking in. I've heard people complain about Minnesota's ranking, seeing how they're number eight, but then again, they were 17 coming into this week. They had a great victory over Penn State to bring them up to number eight, so they jumped 9 spots from where they were at before. So I think Minnesota needs to chill, and they'll have opportunities going forward as well. But if you are one of those teams, things tend to work themselves out because of the football games that are left to be played. So if you are upset about your ranking, calm down. Things will work out whether you belong there or not. It it seems to play out that way in a lot of cases. But about Alabama, so they're sitting there at number five. So what the committee told me, or at least the message I got from the committee based off of where they sat Alabama, is they believed, and I can kind of agree with this. They really hadn't played anybody of significance. Now we know how the schedules can be. The schedule is what that's going to be. I can't stand that saying, but I'll use it for this one. And they're gonna where the teams are in terms of their standing. You can't control that. You can only control what you can control, and just try to beat the people who are out there in front of you. Alabama, in this case, their schedule really hasn't been that tough, hasn't been that difficult. I think the best victory they have on their schedule is probably Texas A&M, and Texas A&M has 3 or 4 losses. I'd have to look that up check the stats on that, but I know they have at least three losses. Because they lost to Clemson, they lost to Alabama, and they lost to Auburn. Those are the three losses I know about. But um, this game against LSU was really going to show a lot about Alabama for this year. And with them losing, that really hurt them. Like I felt like if let's say LSU lost that game, LSU to me would still have a pretty good case, even if they didn't win their division, the SEC West within the SEC conference. They would have still had a pretty good case for a one-loss team that could have snuck in there because they've had three top 10 wins, or the teams they beat, the three teams, Texas, Florida, and Auburn. Those teams were top 10 when LSU played them. So even if they lost to Alabama, especially if it was a close loss, they could still somehow wiggle their way in there, depending on what happens later on in the season. Now, obviously, they would need a little bit of help to get in there, but if you were to compare resumes, then LSU could probably sneak in there some way because they have beaten three top 10 teams. Alabama does not have one of those victories in their schedule, so I thought it was very important for them to beat LSU because that could have been their signature win. They could have moved on. They still would have had the Iron Bowl to come up against Auburn later on in the year, and then they can go to the SEC championship game. All that is in grave danger, especially where you consider they put them. They put them on the outside looking in. So now it just depends on how everything breaks down. Because even though I say they're in danger, they're actually still in a good spot because Georgia could still lose. LSU, although I don't really see it, they could still lose as well. Ohio State and Clemson could still lose, but those two teams, because of the conferences they play in, not really that tough. So I see Ohio State probably going undefeated for the rest of the time. I don't see Michigan beating them. I don't see Penn State beating them. It looks like they could play Minnesota in the Big Ten championship game. I don't think Minnesota has enough to beat them. Clemson in the ACC, there ain't nobody beating Clemson in the ACC, or at least I don't see it. But with Alabama being in the SEC, it's really tough in that conference. Anybody can kind of rise up there and beat you. So Alabama, even though I say they're in a precarious spot, they're still okay. They just need a little bit of help to get there instead of controlling their own destiny. But the message the conference or the committee sent was Alabama hadn't really played anybody, and because they hadn't played anybody, they put them outside for now. We'll see how everything plays out. There's a lot of football left to be played, and it'll be interesting. Georgia, they look good to do something because if they continue to win out, they'll be in the SEC East representative, and it looks like they'll play LSU, number one team in there. If they win out, Georgia will be in. As it is, they sit at number 4, but they do have a tough game against Auburn coming up. So it'll be really interesting to see how everything comes out. So that's what I'm breathing on for today. Y'all make sure y'all hit that subscribe button on the BOFA or the Breath of Fresh Air YouTube channel and continue to bring the likes to the Facebook page as well. Everybody take care. Happy Hump Day. And we will talk to you later on this week.